This is Andy Tube. In this video I want to demonstrate how to change the motor belt on a vintage Singer sewing machine. For the demonstration I'm going to be using a Singer Model 413 that I'm working on anyway. But this procedure would cover a couple of dozen of Singer vintage machines at least. So if you have a machine that has this type of internal motor with a belt, this will pretty much work on your machine also. And to get started we have to remove 3 of the covers and the hand wheel. So we want to take off the arm cover, the top cover, and it has 2 screws, one up here towards the needle bar end of the machine and one back here next to the hand wheel area of the machine. And you just take those screws out and you can lift the cover right off and put it aside. The next thing that we want to do is take off the end cover, and again it is 2 screws, and a lot of people call this the motor cover plate. Singer called it the end cover. This is the motor sitting in here, and this is the belt that goes from the hand wheel to the motor pulley that powers up the, gives mechanical power to the machine to move everything. And the cover plate on this machine is metal, and it just sits up here like this. It has 2 screws, one up here, one down here, and you just remove both of them. Some later machines they just had 1 screw, but you move that off so that you'll have access to work in here, and you'll be able to take off the hand wheel. And I guess while we're here we'll go ahead and take off the hand wheel. And if you've never done it, it's very simple to do. Just take a small screwdriver here, and we'll go in and we'll loosen the stop set screw here and back it out a little bit. And you can take it all the way out if you want. And then hold on to the hand wheel up here, and then you just remove the stop motion screw by turning it left until it comes off of the horizontal arm. And behind it, between it and the hand wheel, you'll find a little stop motion clamp. So you take that off too. Now you'll be able to remove the hand wheel later. And the last plate that you need to take off is the bottom plate. Some people call the oil pan or the drip pan, but it covers the bottom of the machine. Most of them look like this, and they're held on with one thumb nut that goes right on the screw. And you just remove that thumb nut and you pull the bottom plate off. Now some later models in the 600 and 700 line, they may have 1 screw and the plate slides up, the plastic plates. Some of them had 2 screws and then the plastic plate came off or slid up off of the feet. Normally you don't need to remove the feet or anything, even though it looks like it. Now down here, get a little more light on here. Down here we see this motor bracket assembly. If you see this black piece between the washers, the white washers, that's the bottom of the motor bracket. And the motor itself is permanently attached to this bracket. And the bracket's held in place by a steel screw here. And you can enter from the access hole on the side of the machine and go in and loosen that screw. There's no need to take it out normally, just loosen it. And then we can turn that washer. This adjustment washer, the hole's off to one side. And there is a little screwdriver slot in that washer, so you can turn it with the screwdriver or just with your fingers. But let's see, If you can see back in here, you see that silver back here, that's the bottom of the motor. And this adjustment bracket, as you turn it, it moves the bracket up closer to the hand wheel, which would be less tension on the motor belt. Or if you turn it the other way, it pulls that bracket down and puts more and more tension on the belt. So if you see back in there, that bottom silver of the motor is moving up and down. If I turn this a little bit more to the side, if I can work around the camera here and see, you'll be able to see that eccentric adjustment washer. There we go. You can see it moving more. So you want to turn it so that the thinnest part showing of the washer is facing the bracket. That gives you the most slack or the least amount of tension on the belt. And that's what we want. We want the belt to be slack so we can pull it off. Okay? Alright, now keeping that there, we'll stand the machine up here. And let's see if I can get some light on that pulley. Maybe. It's a little brown pulley right there. You see how loose the motor is. And it's, you can usually slip the belt off right now. Like that. But you can't take it off of the hand wheel. So that's why we have to pull the hand wheel off now. And it just comes straight off the horizontal arm shaft. And you see the belt rides in the groove to carry the belt. And this style of belt is called a V belt because it's narrower inside than outside. And you can inspect your belt. This one actually doesn't look bad. This machine didn't have much use at all. When you see a lot of shiny on this side, or you're seeing threads, loose threads of the belt coming off, that means it's had a lot of use. Also, when you pinch the belt like this and it's stiff and you see cracks in here, it's time to change the belt. Now, for me, if I was keeping the machine, I'd just keep this belt. It might last for years. I don't know, because it's very supple. And the machine just didn't get much use. But the belt is old. So since I'm selling it, I'm just going to change the belt. And in the later part of this video, I'll put a new belt and I'll talk to you about how to help find the correct belt for your machine, what to look for and what to avoid when you're buying a belt. But to put the belt back on, you just go in reverse here. You're going to slip it onto the groove in the hand wheel, and I usually put a couple fingers up on top to keep it in that groove, and then I'm just going to slide the hand wheel down, pull down on the belt a little bit, just slide it back in there like that, and rotate it around, make sure I'm in the groove and it didn't slip off. And then sometimes the motor can fall down when it's not being held by the belt, so you just want to lift it up a little bit and slip the belt back onto the pulley like that. Now you see the belt's going to need adjustment because this is way too much slack on the belt, you know, and I'll show you how to do that. But what I want to do is put the hand wheel, rest of the hand wheel parts back on there. And to put the hand wheel parts back on there, we're going to start with that clamping washer. Now you'll see two little tabs or ears that stick in towards the center and three that stick out. These two that go into the center, they should be kind of bent out towards you as you look at them. Okay? You don't want them being bent away towards the machine. And those two tabs go into two slots that are cut into the very end of the arm shaft. And you got a 50-50 chance of putting this on correctly. So we'll just put it on there, fit those tabs up in the slots like that, with those tabs pointing towards me, and then I'll screw the stop motion screw back on here. Get it back on. Alright, and then I'll tighten that stop set screw. And now to test it to see if I have put the clamp on properly, I'll hold the hand wheel and I'll turn this to the left, and it should go about 1/8 of a turn. Oops. Nope. It's not turning. I think it's right on top of one of the 3 tabs. So I had a 50-50 chance of putting that washer on correctly, and I lost. I got the wrong 50% chance. So let me unscrew it, and to correct this problem, you rotate that clamping washer. Oops, oh, it fell off, too bad. Because normally, however you had it on, you would just rotate it halfway around, or 180 degrees, and then put it back on. So I don't know if I did that because that washer fell off when I took the screw off. So we'll try it again. Tighten this up and we'll test it. There, that's about right. See how that, holding the hand wheel and turning it, it just goes about 1/8 of a turn. And then I'm going to turn it right and see if I can clamp down on that stop motion clamp. And I can't turn it anymore, so that's a very good sign. I'm clamped on. And if we look way up there at the needle, as I rotate the hand wheel, you see the needle going up and down. And maybe you can see the feed dogs moving over there, which means that I've got the hand wheel assembled in the proper way. When I turn it left and take pressure off that clamp, I can turn the hand wheel and the needle and feed dogs do not move. Okay, now I've got to set the right tension on the belt. And Singer says that you can go in one of the access holes to that white washer and turn it, and I never have much luck going in there because I can't see it very well. So I lay the machine on its back again. Got a little towel back there to protect the beautiful paint, and I'll go in from the access port now where I can see what I'm doing, and I'll go into that white washer if I can find the slot again. See, I turn it a little by hand here till I can see that slot. There it is. And I'm going to start turning it to put some tension on the belt. Now if I turn it too far, I'll have too much tension on the belt. Maybe I can turn this so that you could see a little bit of the belt also. Yeah, can't show you both at the same time. So I'll adjust it to where I think it's about right, and then I'll show you the belt tension. That looks pretty good. Okay. Can you see that belt tension there? That looks pretty good to me. If it's too tight, the belt won't flex. It won't deflect at all. If it's too loose, it'll deflect way in. So I don't know what you would call that deflection, maybe a ½ inch or something. But I kind of do it by sound of the motor, because every belt's a little different. Some are going to flex more than others. So I want to see, can I plug this in here? I want to plug the power in, and I want to hear that motor run. What's going on here? I want to hear that motor run. There we go. Make sure my power is on. I want to hear it run, and I want to hear it smooth, no stress, and that I can run the motor at a high RPM. Yay, that sounds good. Now I'm going to grab the hand wheel and try and run the motor. Yep, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to accept that as a good tension. If you run the motor and grab it and the pulley keeps spinning, even though the belt won't because you're holding the hand wheel, it might mean you have not enough tension on the belt. The belt might be a little bit loose. But the nice thing is with this now is if you ever want to adjust it, you don't even need to open this up or anything, really. You can take the bottom plate off so that you can see that adjustment, and you can go in and turn it to make a little more tension. You make a little more tension there and try it. Yeah, you want that motor to be able to run smooth and without binding. You don't want the belt so loose that it flaps and slips while you're sewing. Once you get it set how you like, be sure and tighten up that center steel screw, because that not only supports the motor and the bracket, but it kind of locks in the tension setting you've made on that white washer. Okay, let's test it again. Yep. Okay. Sometimes when you tighten this, it can change the tension a little bit. And if it does, just back it off and adjust your tension again, just a smidge. Sometimes it can increase the tension. So if it does, loosen it, loosen the steel screw, adjust for a little tiny bit less tension, tighten it back up, and test it again. There we go. And I'll show you the belt working once more and show you the tension that I found was good for this belt. So you see a little tiny bit of vibration on this belt, but not very much. And I can still run the motor at high speed. So that helps me believe that the belt is not too tight. So that is removing and inspecting and reinstalling the belt. Now let me talk to you about belts and how to shop for them, what to look for and what to look out for. So now I'd like to talk about belts on these vintage sewing machines, and how to go about selecting them, what to look for, and maybe what to avoid. This is the original belt that I took off from this model 413, and it's very common to quite a few sewing machine models for Singer, and the original part number was 196386, and it's usually imprinted on the belt number. On this one it's not. I can see where it was to begin with, and it looks like I can kind of see most of the 6, the ending number there, but it's just too worn off. So if you're going to change your belt, that's the first thing you want to look for, is there a belt number. And that if you buy that same belt number, you will usually, not always, but usually find that it fits. And the reason that I say not always is here's some belts that I bought trying to find a belt that would fit this machine, and 2 of them are imprinted with the part number 196386. And then going on different websites, and on some of them even emailing the seller and saying, this is the model that I have, what belt should I buy from you to make it fit? And these are belts that I was sold telling me that they would fit, and none of them do. They're all too big, and some of them, I mean, are like way too big. And if you're looking at this cog belt and say, wow, that's a cog belt, he shouldn't use that anyway, I would disagree with you. It still has a V shape, and I have used this style of belt a couple times before on machines that I restored, and it performed very nicely. You know, so that doesn't disclude a belt for me, but the size of it did. So if you see, let's see if I can get down here and show you. If you see how easy this thing slips on here, and when I adjust the adjustment washer and nut down below to make it as tight as possible, it's still just way too loose, and the belt slips and flops around. And the same thing with the same style of belt, but a different size. These, I think, tend to have, well, this is 193077, but before that it says 1538, and I believe that means 15 3/8. And this belt, same style, but it has a Alpha Sew 1538, and I think that those belts, that 1538 is not the part number, but that's the size, 15 3/8 inch. What's funny is they're 2 different manufacturers. They both say 1538, but they're not the same size. One is longer or bigger around than the other. So, you know, even if you said, oh, I know a 1538, 15 3/8 inch belt will fit on my machine, and you see it and you buy the one that's got a good price, it may not work. And remember I said the other part on this was the 193077? Well, the guy that I sent the first 386 belt back to and said it's too tight, I can't get it on, then he says, oh, well, some of them take a little bit bigger belt. Sorry about that. Here's the belt that will work. Well, it turns out it's also the 193077, and it's the same problem, you know, as the cog belt. When I put it on and tried it, look at that. It's just way too big. But this, what I'll call, I don't know, fiber belt, rubber belt, 193077 is a different size than this, what I'd call more of a plastic belt, 193077. The plastic belt is even bigger than it. So you can, I think you see what I'm getting at here is I have ordered these 196, 386 belts, and I've even ordered 2 at the same time, and they have the same stamping number from the same seller, and they're different sizes. So it's almost a luck of the draw. Now sometimes I can make these ones that are a little too short. Let me show you this one, and I've been able to like heat them up with the hair dryer, and I don't know if you can see that. It's just way too short. And I have been able sometimes to heat them up with the hair dryer and kind of stretch them. One I broke trying to do that. Another one I finally got on to the pulley, and I said, oh wow, I got that on. And once it was on, it had a little bit of slack, so I said maybe this will work. And I ran the motor only to find out by me forcing it on, I had bent the end of the motor shaft that holds the pulley. So it's like I ruined the whole motor trying to put the belt on. So I don't like that idea. Now in Arizona, I've been able to lay them out in the afternoon sun for an hour and put leather gloves on and pick it up and put it on. A lot of times I've just tried to hang, like, you know, put it over a doorknob and hang a 5-pound weight on it and leave it there for a couple days trying to stretch it out. Now I have a belt from a seller that also is the 196 386, and in looking at these belts, this is the original one, you can kind of see that there's fibers in here, and I don't know if they're nylon fibers but it reminds me of and you kind of see a fibrous thing on the inside here, like a texture. And these remind me of fan belts on the cars I used to work on. And the one that I got that does work seems to be the closest to this style of belt. It's a V belt. It's the same width of belt. It's got this texture going on the inside and the outside, and the side view, it's like I got those little fibers embedded at the top. The other one is, this was one I could not get to work. Let's see what this, yeah, this is the 386. I couldn't get to work. It was just a smidge wider, which is okay, but it's a smoother inside, and it didn't seem to have these, and it didn't seem to have this texture, like this fiber threads going through it, which I don't know if that belt lasts longer or what. It's a little bit stiffer. than the other belts, but not much. The belt, what was that? The 077 belt had a little bit of fiber going on, but look, it's too big. All these were sold to me that they would fit, but they're too big. This was sold to me that it would fit, and it's a 386, which is supposed to fit, but it's just, I could not do it. I couldn't get it on there. So, to reiterate again, my existing belt here is not worn. It's just barely showing some cracking here. And for me, I would run this belt until it started slipping or giving me a problem. But because I'm restoring this machine, and it is beautiful. It is, I wish it showed up more in the camera, but it's the palest mint green you ever saw. Or I don't even know if I'd call it mint, but it's the palest green. It's not white. And I noticed in some of the other videos it looks white. But anyway, let me show you about getting these tight belts on. So this was the one I had the best luck with, and I put it on the same way. Okay. So well, let me go back here to the bottom, just to reiterate that I adjust this so that the thinnest part of the white washer is on the bottom. That's supposed to move the pulley closest to the hand wheel. It moves the motor up closer to the hand wheel. That's the most I can make it go close. Okay? And then when I put the let's see if I get this out here. Put the hand wheel on here, and make sure it gets in that groove and the hand wheel gets slid into the machine all the way. Lifting up the motor as much as possible. It's a very tight fit to get it on there. I've got to kind of curl it on one side and start turning the hand wheel while pushing the belt down and onto the pulley. Is this showing it all? To try and get it to jump that lip of the pulley there and get on there. Now once it's on there, you know, it's okay. It's not too tight. Let me run it a little bit here. See, and even when I grab it, it won't slip. So, and that is with like no, as slack as I can make it. So it just barely works. Now, I know from experience that the belt is going to stretch after it's been used for a while. And an old belt, like the one I can get off, which is bigger than this, has probably stretched. And that's the problem with some of them, is they don't wear out per se as much as they just stretch, and they start slipping on the hand wheel and the pulley no matter how you adjust. But this one, I just barely turn it past the slackest point, and I'm going to tighten that steel screw and then set the machine up and test it up here and make sure that it's not too tight. I don't have to worry about these new ones you know, being too loose on most of them. Let's run it now. Actually, that's a little bit tight, and I think I may have mentioned this before, that sometimes when you get your setting and it's perfect, but then when you tighten this steel screw and it clamps together, it puts just a wee bit more tension on there. So I'm going to move this white adjusting washer back so I'm not putting any tension on the belt. This is as slack as I can make the belt. I had nudged it forward just a little bit, but when I tightened the steel screw, that made it too tight. So let's listen to it now and see if I can get the full motor run. Okay, now let's see if I can grab it and it won't slip on the pulley. Yeah, so that belt is barely on there, but it's going to work. And chances are, whoever buys it and starts sewing on it after they've used it a while, they may have to go in and adjust that tension, because the brand new belt will stretch out a little bit. And I'm not crazy about these internal belt styles like this, because they don't give you, I mean, there's like an 1/8 of an inch or 3/16 of an inch of play between the most slack and the least slack, so they don't give you a lot. I think on the motors that used to be mounted out here on the side, and the, you know, the exposed motor and belt, they had a lot more, you know, like close to 1 inch of play, so you didn't have trouble fitting a belt. So these ones that didn't work, I'm not going to mention the sellers because I've used the seller before. I feel that they're all reputable sellers. I've bought other parts from them that were just terrific, and I don't want to give them a bad name, but I would encourage you strongly to work with them, or at least see if they have a free return policy, you know, or write them and say, look, I've got a 413, or I got a 337, I got a 457. What belt? Sell me the proper belt and guarantee me it's going to fit. Because I think some of these sellers were just told from the manufacturer, yeah, this belt will fit that model, you know. And I worked with some of them. One of the sellers, you know, says, hey, put a piece of tape around your belt, and then put that tape down on like a paper or a newspaper, and mark the edge of the tape, and then roll the belt along until that piece of tape comes back, you know, down, and mark it, and then take your tape measure and measure between those two marks you made, and that's the size of your belt. You know, if it's a 15 and 3/8 inch or 14 and 5/8 inch, that's the size of your belt. So I did that, and I got a belt that's too big. Then another one told me, no, take your old belt and pick a spot and put a string on it there, and then just run that string like this, holding it there until you get back to where your string, and then when you get to your starting point, then you take that string, you know, however long it is, and you measure that string, and that tells you the belt of your size. So I did that. I also got a belt that was too big. So just be careful, and you may be able to stretch a belt by laying it in the sun, hanging a 3 or 5 pound weight on it for a few days, warming it with a hair dryer. But I have broken a belt trying to stretch it, and I have damaged the motor shaft and I had to pay for a motor replacement for one of my customers, because getting that belt on there, I actually bent that shaft, which I don't know, that's hard to do, but I felt I had bent it. That was too weird. So I will put a link in the description to the seller that I feel I got the best belt from. It's Louis Love Bug on eBay. And I've bought stuff from Louis before. I bought needles and things like this from there, but I've also bought vintage sewing machine parts, usually new things like bobbins and light bulbs and needles and the belts and stuff like that. And Louis' belt did fit the best. You can see I got it on there without too much trouble, not hurting anything, and even though it's adjusted for as slack as it can be, you know, it's still got on there. So this belt will have a long life, at least when it stretches out and that can be adjusted for tension. This belt could last 20 years, you know. So like I said, I'll put the link to Louis Love Bug, L-U-I Love Bug, on eBay. And thanks to Louis for selling me a belt that worked. That's replacing a motor belt on a vintage Singer. This is a 413 model again, but same kind of thing. 337, 347, 348, 338, 413, 416, 418. See what others have I done. 513, 534, 457, you know. And if your belt has the number on it already, your old belt, then that would be your best bet to try and buy a belt with that same part number. Otherwise, work with the seller and be sure that you can return a belt if it's not going to work for your machine. A good seller should let you do that for sure. Thanks for tuning into this video, and I'll be back with more videos on the Stylus 413 in the future. Take care.